India's COVID crisis. The book, written by two highly acclaimed authors, was released in India early June and has been on top of the Amazon bestseller list since its launch. We are very eagerly waiting to read the book in Australia and are very fortunate to have the authors Amit Bagaria ji and Savio Rodrigues ji, as well as the publisher Ankur Pathak ji to speak with us today. Now, as the event is being hosted in Australia, as per Australian customs, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. And I would also like to pay my respect to the elders past and present. Now, before we begin the session, I would like to briefly introduce the organizations in Australia who facilitated this event. Starts with SETU. So SETU is a platform created to connect academicians, business leaders, intellectuals, and young professionals in Australia and India to promote dialogue, explore opportunities, and establish close ties between the two countries, which can together influence and shape the global discourse. Secondly, we've got the Hindu Council of Australia supporting us. Now, their mission is to work for a strong, cohesive, and active Hindu community in Australia, aiming to live in harmony with other communities, while also preserving and sharing the Hindu faith, culture, and our traditions with others in the society. Lastly, we have the Hindu Resonance Forum, which provides a voice to the Hindu community in Australia for creating and spreading positive fact-based narratives about issues related to India and systematically countering the negativity being spread against our culture and country by anti-India or anti-Hindu establishments through social, electronic, and print media. Now, with that brief introduction, let's get to the main event today. So today's agenda will be the book launch, and it's a first international book launch, followed by a conversation with the authors and the publisher, and then a Q&A session with the audience. Now, just a few meeting etiquettes. Can I request that all members of the audience keep your microphones on mute for the whole event? Please send your questions via the Zoom chat to the host, myself. I'll compile and convey them to Prajakta and Soumya, who can ask them to the panel. And remember, in case of any technical issues, we are streaming this session live on Facebook, so you can follow it via the SETU Facebook page. Also, you can ask your questions on that page. We are keeping an eye on that too. I now request Soumya and Prajakta to proceed. Over to you.
Hi, I'm Soumya Chandelier, and I would like to welcome you all once again to the virtual international book launch of the book named Modi Stole My Mask by Garuda Prakashan. Hope you all are doing well. And with the advent of technology, we are lucky enough to be able to invite you all to an online platform to celebrate this achievement together. Thanks to all of you once again for your gracious presence. So finally, the wait is over and we are revealing this book, and I request all of you to hold the copies for us in front of the camera. Thanks, everyone. So this marks the Australian launch of the book. Taking this event forward, I would like to introduce Mr. Amit Bagaria, who is a serial entrepreneur turned serial author. He has written 9 non-fiction books and 2 fiction novels since March 2018, 5 of which became #1 bestsellers. 3 of his books have been translated and adapted in Hindi, and this is his 10th non-fiction book and 12th book all over. Thank you, Amit ji, for making up to this event. Taking it forward.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Taking it forward, I would like to welcome Mr. Savio Rodrigues, who has served more than 25 years of his life in journalism and communication. He is also an editor-in-chief of Goa Chronicle, which is a globally known news portal. Apart from this, Mr. Savio is a well-known panelist on TV and has hosted many talk shows nationally and internationally as well. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us, Mr. Savio.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now I would request Prajakta to take forward the further proceedings.
So, namaskar everyone. I am Prajakta Zunagare, and I would like to thank both the authors for addressing and being here today with us. I would also like to introduce the publisher, Mr. Ankur Pathak and Mr. Sankrant Sanu. Unfortunately, due to a busy schedule, Sanu ji couldn't be here with us today, but Mr. Ankur ji is here, and who is also a known author and a co-founder of the Garuda Prakashan. He has been invited to IIT Kanpur, IIT Bombay, IIT Patna, and many other institutions for guest lecture on his book. He's a thinker, philosopher, and deeply rooted in Sanatan Parampara. He is a seeker of Adhyatma and also a practitioner of Dhyana. It is commendable that Garuda Prakashan has taken this as a mission to bring out the truth of events happening in Bharat post 2019. We are lucky to have their second book launched in Australia. Also, now I would like to begin a conversation with the authors. And my first question is to Mr. Amit Bagaria. I wanted to ask you, what made you take up the task of writing this book?
So, before I answer your question directly as to what made me take up the task of writing the book, exactly what happened and why I started writing the book in mid-April happened again last night. My daughter got married just about 8-9 days ago, and she and my son-in-law, they came over this weekend to stay with us. And our son, who also lives separately, he was also with us, and we were all together. We were playing some games and things like that. And I have been following the vaccination data of India for the past 2.5, 3 months, and I've been tweeting about it regularly. So I was just telling them, that in the last 8-9 days, India has done very, very well on vaccination. We've crossed all world records. Our numbers are extremely high. And immediately, my daughter says, "No, that's not true," because an article came out saying that that's all rubbish. So I said, where did that article come out? What was the basis of that article? She's like, "Don't argue. You're a Modi Bhakt. So, I won't believe anything that you say." So the problem is that people are not even willing to believe in numbers. And that's what actually happened in April. The reason I decided to start writing this book was that, people were projecting as if India was the worst hit country in the second wave of the pandemic, which had started around 10th of March. And I am a data analyst. I have been doing, it's my hobby. And in a lot of my books and a lot of my articles are based on data analytics and research. And I quickly crunched some data, and I saw that if we compare India's numbers with the 20 largest countries most affected with COVID, then India was actually at the 17th position. That means 16 other countries were worse hit than India. And that's, then I did one or two more analysis. I said, let's not look at only cases, let's also look at deaths, let's also look at other parameters. And I realized that we were not that bad off in any parameter. And that's where I decided that, I need to write a book based on facts, because, people were publishing, even the leading newspapers of the country were writing articles comparing India's numbers with Israel or with Mongolia or with Cambodia. Now, you can't start comparing a country of 1.4 billion people with a country of 90 lakh people. It's completely crazy. You need to compare. Any data needs to be compared. When you start looking at the number of COVID cases, you need to say per lakh or per million or per crore or per 100, per something, whatever parameter you pick. It has to be based on that. And I said, every single issue that there has been negative publicity about, there have been negative articles about, whether it's the shortage of oxygen, whether it's the shortage of hospital beds, whether it's the shortage of remdesivir injections or whatever it is. Let us do a fact check on all of that and come out with an easy to read book. So that's how the journey began.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's a good thing to know, that people are really not believing in the numbers. And I guess through this book, me and my other workers and friends will get to know the exact situation in India and the truth. I would like Soumya to continue further.
Yeah, I would like to ask Mr. Savio about how Mr. Savio and Amitji came together writing this book, or the previous relation, like how did you came together? Mr. Savio, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can. Sorry, I got bumped off because of connectivity. Well, Amit, it's very strange how Amit and I actually got together. Normally, some of the best friendships actually come in the most strangest of ways.
Yeah.
So Amit started writing the book, Modi Stole My Mask, and he had sent me an article. He got in touch with me through Twitter and sent me an article, and he thought that maybe I will dwell over the article and take some time and publish it on Goa Chronicle. But it took me less than 4 minutes to understand that he had written a beautiful article, had lots of data in it, and I'm a person who likes people who can articulate with data. I carried the article. He was extremely surprised that it was carried in less than 4 minutes. It was already on the site. I sent him the link. And I, basically told him it was brilliant work, and I like brilliant work. So he sent me a second article, and and we carried the second article as well. Then I said, he and I are talking the same thing. He's got data, I've got data. I'm working on a book. He's already started working on a book. So rather than doing it differently, why not combine our resources, our research, and put it together? And that's exactly what happened. I requested him and I said, Amit, could I be a part of it? And I'm grateful he agreed to it, because what we are doing now is that we've done the first bit of the book, which is Modi Stole My Mask, and concentrated on the India aspect of it. But what we're going to do next is go beyond and look at China and the World Health Organization and their complacencies, their dereliction of duty as far as being a World Health body, as well as China being a part of the member states of the World Health Organization, and what all they have done to actually not contain the pandemic. You see, the problem in India, and one of the reasons why I decided to want to write the book with Amit, is that everybody was talking about the pandemic. But India was not only hit by a pandemic. India was hit by the pandemic, which is the health crisis, but it was also hit by a pandemic. The pandemic is really what we wanted to actually bring out, because a pandemic is a health crisis. Any other country in the world, any other political leader in the world would have found it extremely, extremely difficult to deal with what people call the second wave, but what I would like to call a tsunami of a health crisis that hit India at that point of time when we were dealing with it. So I don't think any political leader in the world could have dealt with it, purely because India as a nation and the size of the country to deal with the pandemic. But simultaneously, there was an orchestrated pandemic that worked towards creating chaos, confusion, and positioning India in a very pathetic condition globally. That was the intent, to make India look bad, to make India look weak, and most of all, to target the Prime Minister Modi in so much as to having him failed in what he was his prime responsibility, which was to save lives of the people of the country. So to me, the pandemic was an issue that needed to have been addressed very assertively, so that the country, the people of the country, and the people of the world understand that what is portrayed in most media, or what has been voiced by most people, and which are the fears being circulated, on social media, that you have to be able to understand with facts and figures, and then arrive at a conclusion whether it's a failure or not. So we were fighting the pandemic from a health perspective, and we were fighting the pandemic through data and analysis.
So I think
before the hosts ask another question, Savio, I want to have a small 45-second conversation with you. Can you tell the viewers here, Savio, what is the circulation? I mean, what is the readership of Goa Chronicle, number one? And number two, what percentage of your readers are from outside Goa? And I'll tell you, once you answer these questions, I'll tell you why I'm asking these questions.
Sure. Okay. Last year, we did about 6.3 million viewers all across the world. This time till May 31st, we did 4.8 million viewers around the world. We are seen in over 197 countries. Our top countries are basically India, US, UK, United Arab Emirates, Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, Germany are the top countries that we are viewed in. But most importantly, it's the age group that we are viewed in. It's between 18 to 50 years of age that you have a maximum amount of viewership that comes to Goa Chronicle.
And what is the percentage of readership outside of Goa?
The percentage of readership outside of Goa is 37. Outside of Goa is roughly about 69% outside of Goa.
So almost 70%, right?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So when you talk about 4.8 million readers up to May 31st, roughly that's about 1 million readers per month. So let's say you will end the year, and it's growing. You know, I've seen the growth with my own articles, the 14, 15 articles that I've contributed. I've seen how the readership has been growing. So you would perhaps end the year with about 12 million readership, which is larger than the readership of the Guardian UK, right?
Yes.
Now, despite that, the issue is that when I try to counter anti-India narratives, and like I've shared with you, Savio, and I'd like to share with the audience here, that I'm very sad about the fact that in my own family, the entire younger generation, every single member of my family and my wife's family who's below the age of 35, absolutely hate Modi ji, right? Now, I don't want to get into reasons why they hate him, okay? They may hate him because of the way he dresses or the way he speaks, because of the fact that they can't understand the Hindi that he talks in, because of the fact that they themselves have been educated in Western, universities, etc. But the fact is, the reality is they all hate him. Because they hate him, what has started happening, and what has started happening with crores and crores of Indians, is that they've started hating India. Because he's doing good for India. So when you start hating a person who's doing good for the country, you start looking at everything in a very negative fashion. So just 3 days back, 4 days back, again, I was having this argument on a WhatsApp chat with our family group, and a nephew who's an MBA from a reputed university, he works in Walmart in San Francisco. He said, go give your gyan to people in Goa. Maybe they will be interested. Right. And Savio just shared with us that 70% of Goa Chronicles readership is outside of Goa, number one. And number two, like I just said, the readership of Goa Chronicle is larger than the Guardian of the UK. But that is the narrative, that is the anti-India narrative that has been built by the leftists and the liberals, who we, by the way, expose in the book. You know, one of the things that Savio and I are extremely happy and, content about is that one of the things that we wrote about in the book, and of course, a lot of things when we wrote this, they were based on certain reports, etc., etc. But one of the things that we wrote was that the government of Delhi, led by Mr. Honorable Shri Arvind Kejriwal, was actually hoarding oxygen. And 2 days ago or 3 days ago, the Supreme Court Supreme Court appointed panel has come out and said, yes, that is right. So, this is just one of the narratives in the book that has been proved right, and our stand has been vindicated. And over a period of time, Savio and I are both confident of the fact that everything that we have written in the book, one by one, is going to be exposed.
Okay, next one, Prajakta Soumya.
Yeah, my next question is again to Amit ji. I wanted to ask you, how did you choose the title, or how did you come up with the title for the book?
It's a very interesting question. I gave you the reason why I decided to write the book, and in the same logic, my mind was saying that since they are blaming Modi ji for everything, from an oxygen crisis to whatever. They're blaming him for the second wave as if he's actually, infused the air of India to make people breathe the second wave or whatever. I said, these same people, if they get COVID themselves, because they were not wearing a mask and they were partying and, in some restaurant, they're going to say, oh, Modi stole my mask. So why not that as a title? And Ankurji is smiling here. I know Ankurji had a little bit of a, question about whether this book will be seen as an anti-Modi book, but that has not been the case. I think the title has done very well. I think you will agree, Ankurji.
Absolutely.
Ask Ankur Pathak that how you decided to get Amitji and Savioji together to write on this book, and did they approach you or Garuda Prakashan approached them?
Okay, so before answering your question, I would like to thank SETU, who has organized this international book launch. And I would like to congratulate both the authors who have done, wonderful job by writing this book and bring out the truth and expose the culprits at the right time. So, as you all know, that Garuda Prakashan has been established to bring out such books which are good for India, right? So it was the time when the COVID was at peak in India, and we all were suffering from the COVID. In fact, I was also affected by COVID, and the founder of Garuda Prakashan, Sangrant Sanoji, got also affected severely by COVID. So we all were in this trouble, and if I would share my personal experience, then uh, there is a road near my house on which there were ambulances. The sirens of ambulances you can hear in every 15 minutes. So this was the horrible situation we were facing at the peak time of COVID, and everyone was blaming Modi ji and administration, government of India, that they have not handled the situation correctly. So during that time, I got a call from Amit ji, and he told me that he's writing a book on this COVID situation. So because he has already written a book called Congress Mukt Bharat for Garuda, which was launched, I guess, 2 months back. So I knew that he is an excellent writer, and I knew his style of writing. So I knew that this book will definitely bring lot of facts, lot of data in it, and it will expose those real culprits. So I asked him to send the manuscript to me, and let us get it reviewed from our editorial board, and then we see. So when I received the manuscript, then our editorial team said that this is an excellent work, and during this very short period of time, Amit Bagaria ji has done excellent job. And then after some time, he shared this information that Savio ji is also joining the authors team. So we were glad that Savio ji is also a very renowned journalist, and both of them will do definitely a very remarkable work and bring out the truth to the readers. So immediately we approved the file, we approved the manuscript, and started working upon the book. And in very we prioritize to bring out this book very soon because of the given situation. And you can give some credit to Garuda Prakashan team to bring it out in this good form, right? And in a very short span of time. And now it is number one bestseller on Amazon, and very soon it will be number one in the paperback list also. So yeah, that's
Ankurji, not just Garuda Prakashan does not need credit only for bringing out the book on time. Garuda Prakashan needs credit for publishing, for being one of the only publishers in India that publishes books which stand for pro-India, right?
Correct.
Savio was asking me, when the book had not even come out, Savio was asking me, can we take part in Lit Fest? And I said, Savio, it's a complete waste of time because I have tried in the past. And the organizers of Lit Fest have told me on my face, a right-wing author, we are not going to invite. This is only open for left-wing authors, right? This is the situation. And, I know the data. I know that 97% of people in India only read romance thrillers. It is only 3% of Indian readers who read all the other genres put together. And in that 3%, Ankurji, my books put together, if you take the sale volume, I am amongst the top 50 writers in India in the non-romance genre. Yet, Litfest will not invite me, right? Publishers like Bloomsbury or HarperCollins or Hachette or all of these people will not publish my books because they are only interested in the left-wing narrative. They will print some nonsense from Sanjay Baru, which will go on to sell 600 copies, and they will be happy about that. But they will not print something which is, pro-India, which will sell 6,000 copies. Well, that's their business model. But Ankurji, I think, I'm saying every nationalist needs to support the work that Garuda is doing.
I agree.
Thank you, Amit.
I completely agree with Amit out there because I think the most important aspect that we're missing out is the left ecosystem. And not that Amit and I are right. The point is we are nationalists and we're pro-Indian. Now, a book like Modi Stole My Mask that has data, which has facts, which has figures, which has research, which has analysis, that allows for India and the people of India to actually take an informed decision on how the pandemic health crisis was dealt with by the Indian government and various other stakeholders. But you know what? We've even tried to our PR agency, and I have a pretty effective PR agency, but the media just shuts us off and says, we're not going to write about this book. We're not going to review this book. And Amit would tell you because somebody told him, that you could get a review for 3.5 lakhs in one of the leading publications, right? So people don't want to read the truth. That's the problem. And that's why I like Garuda, because Garuda is actually giving an opportunity for pro-nationalist writers to actually come forward and write a book. Because the ecosystem is not going to encourage us, that's for sure. Even today, when MyGov India is running a very wonderful program, it's actually a very good program for young authors to inspire them to write. One of the authors that's given as an example and a book as reference is Arundhati Roy's book. Now, Arundhati Roy is the most venomous author against India. I mean, she walks hand in hand with Islamic extremists and Kashmiri separatists that work against India. And I'm amazed. I don't know how it works, but they have a powerful ecosystem that we cannot find authors that are nationalistic enough to be taken as examples, that we have to find in Arundhati Roy. So there is an ecosystem and we have to work with it. And we have to fight it. And that's why Ankur, and if Sankrant was around, I'd tell him you're doing a fabulous job because we have to start somewhere. So thank you so much for supporting us.
And I may add
just one second before I just want to add one thing just in this conversation with Ankurji. Ankurji, I haven't shared this with you, but Savio and I have already planned to write 4 books more together. And in one of these 4 books, in fact, we have another 2 co-writers or co-authors, one of whom is a Muslim and one of whom is a Sikh. So it's basically a Hindu, Muslim, Sikh and Christian coming together to write a book, which is something to do with pro-India nationalism, saying that Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, hum sab hai India ke bhai,
Right. Excellent.
Sorry to jump in, Prajakta and Soumya, but I actually couldn't hold myself when Amiji has mentioned one point about Garuda Prakashan, which actually I can very confidently vouch. When we launched their first book to the Australian public last year on Delhi 2020 riots, And the authors who shared the views were exactly what you both have mentioned now. I mean, Garuda Prakashan has done some fantastic job in exposing Delhi riots to the 2020 and the extensive research all of these three authors did by having that book brought to the public. So yes, I can definitely vouch that the work that Ankurji as well as Sankrantji is doing, who was in US for a very long time, decided to take this as a mission to publish the real truth and the narratives that are being published against India, and publish that through a publishing house. So I definitely agree with you what you're saying. And then over to the next question, probably Soumya or Prajakta can ask.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the next question, but before I do that, I would like the audience to keep sending questions they would want to ask the authors. So yeah, my next question was to Mr. Savioji. What were the most important things that you wanted to convey through this book to the readers?
Well, the first most important aspect of what needed to be conveyed was that as a nation, like the rest of the world, we were going through a health crisis. In a health crisis, it's not about a political party. It's not about a particular state. It's primarily about the country as a whole. So we had to fight this health crisis, understanding what is the concerns that's plaguing the country overall. And that was the main aspect of the book. Now, also, we had to inform and tell the people across India and the rest of the world that while we were facing a pandemic, we were also being victimized by a plandemic. Plandemic by people within the country and outside of the country that wanted to spread chaos, they wanted to spread fear, they wanted people to lose faith in the Indian government, but most of all, they wanted people to lose faith in themselves. Health crisis, when loved ones are losing their lives or there is uncertainty to their lives, creates a lot of panic. And that's exactly what certain people with vested interests were doing in India, creating a panic. In fact, a classic example is that of the Delhi Chief Minister Arundhati Kejriwal himself. And the Supreme Court has now said that he exaggerated the need of the oxygen requirement that was there, the concentrators. So that's the kind of pandemic that they were playing with. You see, I don't have a problem with anybody who might not like Narendra Modi. That's your personal choice. That's your democratic right to whether to like a politician or a political party or even somebody sitting on a political seat. But to turn it into an opportunity to target our own people during a health crisis is absolutely diabolic. And that's the problem we had, and that's what comes out of the book. Now, coupling the acts of the politicians were media. Now, at least media could have been responsible. Media could have taken the higher ground, which is that of looking for the truth in the mess that was happening around. I'm not saying, or Amit is not saying that the government hasn't faltered. There are certain fault points of the government as well. But in a health crisis, to create a sort of a paranoia during the pandemic is worse, because out of the actual COVID pandemic, people were actually afraid, people were scared, that led to even more complications. They were not sure when you create a panic situation. And that's exactly what happened. So we exposed the media, we exposed the politicians, we exposed the fault lines of the government through the book. And most importantly, we wanted to give the people of India hope. This is not the end of the pandemic. What China has done is not something that you would sit back and say it can be dealt with. This was bio-warfare of the most inhumane kind on the people of the world. But mostly, if you look at the countries that form competitiveness, these are the countries that are targeted the most. USA last year, India this year. Taiwan is facing a certain problem aspects of it. You have Japan facing certain variants of the virus. any country that's competitive to China and in China's long-term interests will be impacted by this bio-warfare weapon. And let me state this, I've said it many a times and on many channels. The COVID-19 pandemic caused by the coronavirus is a bioweapon that has come out of the Wuhan lab of China. That is a fact, and I will prove it, and I've proved it on many platforms. It is up to the world to decide. That is why our second book will expose the exact hand of China and the World Health Organization behind this bio-warfare, because China did not bring war to our borders. It did not bring war to the gates of our society, but it brought war right into our homes. And that is inhumane. They need to be tried. Xi Jinping needs to be tried as a war criminal, because that is exactly what he is. That is what the book is about. So we throw light on the role of China, the COVID bioweapon, and most of all, the pandemic. The pandemic is what is real. Please understand what we are saying. There is a serious, demented set of people in India that do not work for India's interest. These are Chinese agents. I'm saying it openly, and I've said it openly. People like Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi are nothing but Chinese agents. There is no bigger proof than them signing the MOU with China in 2008, which they never disclosed to the people of India. What is the relationship? Why is everybody speaking China's voice as far as this pandemic is concerned? That is what we expose in the book.
I would just like to, continuing with what Savio just said, I'd just like to read a paragraph from the book, if I can.
Yeah, for sure.
On May 26th, Rahul Gandhi tweeted a New York Times article that suggested that India had up to 4.2 million deaths compared to the official death count of 307,231. Was Rahul Gandhi suggesting that 39 lakh bodies were secretly buried or cremated? 39 lakh bodies? Come on, Mr. Gandhi, be realistic. Criticize Modi and his government for all its mistakes, but stop playing games with death. In your absolute hatred for the man who has taken the gaddi away from your family, perhaps forever, you have done more damage to India than even the Mughals and the British. I mean, come on, 39 lakh bodies secretly cremated. I mean, of course, the leftist media very, very happily went and took pictures of some bodies floating in Ganga or in some other places, etc. Count all of those put together. Bring all the data together. Maybe there were 5,000, maybe there were 10, maybe there were 1 lakh bodies. But 39 lakh bodies? I mean, come on. 42.5 lakh people died of COVID in India and nobody knew about it. It was all, buried in 6 Deen Dayal Upadhyay Marg in the BJP headquarters. What is this nonsense?
The sad part, Amit, is that the nonsense gets percolated through the media in India itself. That's the problem. Yeah. There's no logic, which is exactly what we are asking. If you are claiming that India had so many deaths and he used the US-based report to actually claim that there were so many deaths, because that was the follow-up tweet, that report did not even have a report on China's death. What were the number of cases in China? They didn't even bring that as part of the report. Where are people? If you're going to have so many people dying, as Amit has asked, are you going to tell me that people are just going to sit quiet and watch the remaining people just be buried?
I mean, Akshay and Abhijit are sitting in Australia, right? Which has a very, very tiny population. But being from India, can you say that if there were 39 lakh hidden deaths in India, would there not be riots on the streets? Would we not have riots which would be bigger than the partition riots of India? would the family members of 39 lakh people have been sitting quietly?
Quietly.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is these are the things which people keep reading. And as you both rightly mentioned initially, that people don't have quest sitting here in Australia to understand what exactly the truth behind it is. Let us go by whatever the narratives that we get to know, but at least at the same time understand what could be the other side of the coin. And if there are people like you out there, including the Garuda Prakashan, let us have an opportunity to understand actually what these guys are also saying, to have the unbiased opinion. Because always the moment you start talking about something good about Indian current dispensation and take the names of Modi, you are permanently branded as a Modi Bhakta. But not necessarily everybody is Modi Bhakta. Everybody is someone who is actually very close to their motherland and they really want to know what is the reality. And probably people like you and more such people who actually are going to come open and tell the truth would provide the actual both the sides of the coin as to what are the facts and where the fault lines were within the government, where they could have actually done some corrective measures to minimize the damages, which also actually is the part of your book. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
And Abhijit, Savio has divided whole of India into two parts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In one part, both Savio and I belong, and Ankurji also belongs, and I'm thinking everybody in SETU also belongs. We are Bhakts. Now, whether we are Bhakts of Modi or whether we are Bhakts of India, I mean, at least Savio and me, we are Bhakts of India. Savio has said the other side are Kambucks.
Okay, Amit, what we are going to do is these two young girls have come up with these questions from their own mind. So we will complete these questions. I think one or two are left. And once that is done, we'll hand it over to Poonam, because Poonam and Akshay are going to manage the questions that have come from audience, and we will just have the flow of the program. So over to you, either Prajakta or Soumya, whosoever wants to take the next one.
The second wave of COVID-19 was a planned one. And was there a real vaccine shortage, or it was just the wrong spread of information throughout the Indians?
Is that question for me?
Yeah. Anyone who would like to take it up.
Go ahead,
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the question.
Yeah. So was the second wave a planned one? What do you think, your opinions about it?
The key question is, can you plan? So first of all, second wave was not a wave. Like Savio has said, it was a tsunami. And the reason why it was so is, again, from the numbers. The peak of the cases in the second wave compared to the first wave in India were 4.23 times. So in the first wave, the peak was 97,859 cases. In the second wave, it was 4,14,000 odd, which was 4.23 times the peak of the first wave. Now, we did a study of the 20 largest countries most affected by COVID, leaving out China because no one believes China's numbers in any case. In those 20 countries, the average of the ratio between the second wave peak and the first wave peak was only 1.66. So if the ratio was 1.66 in 20 countries, why was it 4.23 in India? Number one. Number two, if COVID spreads with touch and with proximity, then why did Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan, and even Pakistan not get affected? How was it that COVID got restricted to the geographical boundaries of India? Were they like, did Trump come and build a wall around India so that the COVID would not cross to our neighboring countries? How did that happen? Number three, why did Navneet Kalra, the owner of Khan Chacha chain of restaurants, why did Navneet Kalra and his partners import 7,500 oxygen concentrators in November, when the first wave was on its way down. The first wave numbers peaked in September, went down further in October, went down further in November. And during the first wave, there was no oxygen shortage. So if there was no oxygen shortage and the first wave is going down, why do you import 7,500 oxygen concentrators? Number 4, why did the Congress party recruit 5 lakh, that's for those who don't understand lakhs and crores, 500,000. They recruited 500,000 social media warriors. They call them warriors. In the first week of February 2021. And in the press release that was put out by the Congress party saying, we are recruiting 5 lakh social media warriors to counter the BJP IT cell. Well, first of all, the BJP IT cell, to the best of Savio and my knowledge, has only 15,000 people. So why does the Congress need 33 times more people to counter the BJP IT cell? Number 1. Number 2, Facebook has 58,000 employees worldwide. So you need 8.33 times Facebook's employee strength to counter the BJP IT cell in India. These parameters, sorry, Sanjukta, right? Who asked the question?
Yeah. Soumya.
Sanjukta, these... Soumya, these questions lead us to believe that the second wave was not a pandemic, it was a plandemic. Now, we have been asked, Savio and I have been asked this question in several interviews that we've already had on different YouTube channels, etc. And one of them, in fact, was a doctor, a very experienced doctor who was asking these questions. And how is it possible for China to export COVID to India or coronavirus to India? COVID is the fallout, the cause is the coronavirus. So it's the virus which infects your body and then you get COVID. So how could China export coronavirus to India? It is very, very easy. Okay. The coronavirus can be injected in packaging materials of courier parcels that are sent to any country. Okay. And that is how it can be transported. And this has been, there have been so many research studies on this. Number 1. Number 2, again, there is so much of work going on worldwide to research whether the coronavirus was genetically modified to affect certain racial ethnicities. And again, if you do a study of who got affected in India in the second wave, it was mostly people south of the Vindhyas or of those races. So even in Delhi, even in Mumbai, it was South Indians who got affected more than North Indians.
Oh, really?
Okay, across the country, yes, across the country, South Indians and people of Mongoloid origin, that is the people of Northeast, our brothers and sisters who live in the Northeast. These people got affected far more than people who are from the Ganga belt. Right? Now, all of these cannot be coincidences. They cannot be. We are a country of 1.4 billion, 140 crore people. It can't be that in 140 crore, this all happened by chance. So yes, our conclusion in our book is that, yes, the second wave was planned. And a third wave is already being planned.
I think Sharad is wanting to speak something. Sharad, you can just unmute. Mr. Sharad.
Sharadji, you can ask the question. You are on mute.
Sharad, your mic is on.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. A couple of things I want to make mention about the literature festival you're talking about earlier. Is it possible to create your own platforms, like Writers platform or nationalist platform, what is the difficulty in creating platforms like these things? Savio or Amit can answer.
Well,
So
that's a very good
Arnab,
question.
Arnab has created, yeah, go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's a good question. There are organizations that are coming together to create platforms.
Yeah.
They're not as much as one would like, but that's the process, because we ourselves are creating platforms of our own. Because at the end of the day, I think it's important to create an ecosystem. The problem is everybody looks at dependency from the government. I think you have to be devoid from dependency of any government and create platforms that are actually become platforms for dialogue. You see, at the end of the day, when I'm looking at a dialogue, I'm not looking at the absence of the left. I want the left to be present over there because at the end of the day, whether you're left or whether you're right or whether you're center, you become a citizen of the country, and that's important for us. So to have a dialogue, an informed dialogue, I would rather try to convince the other side about the truth about the matter, rather than just keep them away from understanding the truth. So when we decided to put the title Modi Stole My Mask, one of the reasons why I accepted the title and I loved it is because a left person from the left side of community would say, oh my God, this is probably a book that's against Modi, so let me pick it up and read it.
Right.
Because some in the right community were actually lambasting, Amit and me, saying, how can you give it to such a title? Modi stole my mask.
Right.
You're criticizing Modi. What they didn't understand is that there is no point of me convincing our people that Modi is not somebody who's necessarily going to do something against the country. He might have faults. He can make errors, which is acceptable. But our intent should be to convince the other side, because there might be 10% rogue on the other side of the system, but the remaining 90% are just misinformed people. So information would help them change their perspective on what's happening in the country. So I think we definitely need more platforms, which we are working on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just one question before Prajakta is going to ask the concluding question, and then we move to Poonam. There is a very common question which has been asked by a number of people. What about this Kumbh Mela, where the interest of so many lakhs of sadhus taking a dip in Ganga? And how come Modi person who is a Hindu, what people say about him, allowed all these things to happen, and millions and lakhs of sadhus took a dip in Ganga? And where was the COVID in that case? Have you actually touched on this?
Can I share my insight primarily? Because I visited the Kumbh. I was one of the people who visited the Kumbh. I had a fabulous experience. But let me tell you certain facts about it. It was probably one of the best organized, events in terms of when I went. I'm talking about a time when there was no crowd. There was very strict COVID protocols that needed to be being followed. We had to get our certificate, which was COVID-free certificates, to be shown when we entered the Kumbh. So we went through an entire process. Two of my friends came from Dubai, and we decided we wanted to go to the Kumbh. But even having gone there myself, having actually seen that the protocols are really strict, I actually was stopped by a cop because I removed my mask to click a snap, and a constable told me, please don't do this or you get fined. So I put my mask back on. So that's how serious they were. When I met a DM who was doing a round in Rishikesh, the first thing he asked me was, do you guys have your COVID-free certificate? So we had to show him that we did get our COVID-free certificate when we entered the place. The point is this: there were strict protocols, there was strict adherence, but should the Kumbh Mela have happened? Our opinions, both Amit and I, it should not have happened. That's our opinion in the book as well.
Yeah.
But was it the super spreader? I'm not willing to believe that.
Okay.
The super spreader in the second wave was actually the farmers' protest. Okay. And it still continues.
The farmers' protest as well as Bollywood.
As well as Bollywood, that's correct. In fact, you don't need to be surprised about Bollywood, because we've actually detailed why. Bollywood is also one of the reasons for super spreader. But nobody will talk about that. All they want to talk about is Kumbh Mela.
I can tell you this particular argument will definitely encourage for people to literally take a copy of the book. So please, please feel free to post in case if you guys are interested. And sorry, Prajakta, for interruption. Over to you before we switch on to Poonam. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. One last question from my side. Was there a real vaccine shortage in the country? Was there a real vaccination shortage in the country?
Amit, you can take this.
So the question actually is dependent on what period you're looking at. So if you look at the period before the second wave started, and people who are, I'm sorry to use this word, but I would say stupid enough to believe that the second wave could have been prevented by vaccinating everybody in India, need to understand. Let me give you very, very, very simple numbers. In order to vaccinate the entire population of India above the age of 2, not 18, but above the age of 2. And I'm saying this despite the fact that China today is the only country in the world which is vaccinating children. It is not even vaccinating 2-year-olds, it's vaccinating above the age of 3. About 19 other countries in the world are vaccinating children above the age of 14. India currently is vaccinating only 18 plus. But in the future, if we have to vaccinate children above the age of 2, and if you take the entire population of India and exclude from that a percentage who will not get vaccinated because they refuse to get vaccinated. Okay? And why are they refusing? There may be 100 reasons. They may have religious belief, they may have they may have their tribal medicine, they may, mothers may not want their children to get vaccinated, people at the age of 75 may not get vaccinated. I mean, even in the US, believe it or not, 45% of the population in the US does not want to get vaccinated. Every single day, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put out tweets and tweets and tweets and Facebook messages, literally begging people to get vaccinated, but it's not happening. So in our book, in our data calculation, we have assumed that about 27.27% of India will not get vaccinated. Leaving out that 27.27%, the total requirement of vaccines in our country, vaccine dosage, accounting for wastage, is 188.8 crore. 188.8 crore. On the 10th of March, the whole world had given 33 crore doses.
Oh, okay.
So could India give
that
5.5 times that number of doses that the whole world had given to stop the second wave? So the second wave could not have been stopped by vaccination. Okay. Now the second part of the question, did we face a vaccine shortage even after that? Yes, we did. But there was a reason why we faced the vaccine shortage. And the reason was, and we have written everything in the book, we've also gone to the extent of saying that, yes, the Modi-led government should have not dependent on 2 vaccines. It was a mistake depending on 2 vaccines. The government should have taken whatever action was necessary to make sure that we had more than 2 vaccines. Having said that, the fact remains that starting in January when the vaccination program was announced, starting in December when the vaccination program was announced, you had Mr. Akhilesh Yadav saying, "Ye BJP ka vaccine hai, hum nahi lenge." You had several Congress leaders, all of them ex-ministers, by the way, and let me name them here: Shashi Tharoor, Jairam Ramesh, who's that Manish Tiwari, all of these guys saying that the Covaxin has not been proved, it's not a proven vaccine, people should not take it. You had people like Prashant Bhushan, Arundhati Roy, well-known people who social media heroes or heroines who call themselves journalists, such as Rana Ayub and many others like that, saying that, oh, vaccines are not good. Muslim organizations across the country were spreading information through the masjids that the vaccine can make you impotent, right? So you won't be able to produce the 18 children or the 36 children that you want to produce, right? Because of which in Aligarh in Aligarh town, 80% of the vaccination centers had to be shut down in Aligarh town because of the messaging that went on inside Aligarh Muslim University. 35 teachers unfortunately lost their lives. Amongst hundreds of other 35 teachers in Aligarh Muslim University lost their lives. 180 staff of Aligarh Muslim University lost their lives because people were not taking vaccines. Even today, people are not taking vaccines in Muslim organizations, right? Because they are told that you'll get impotent because ये बीजेपी का वैक्सीन है, बीजेपी चाहती है कि मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन को कंट्रोल किया जाए और वो पॉलिटिकल डिसीजन की वन कपल टू चाइल्ड पॉलिसी नहीं लाना चाहती है, इसलिए वैक्सीन के थ्रू आपको इम्पोर्टेंट बना देगी. दिस इज गोइंग ऑन टिल टुडे, राइट? Now please consider in all these circumstances put together Bharat Biotech in the list of Indian pharmaceutical companies. It's not in the top 150. It's a small company. Yes, it's become famous because it's the first company that invented in India, created its own COVID vaccine, right? They did not have the money or the guts to increase their manufacturing capacity with so much of negative information. They only started investing in expanding their facility after President Kovind, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu and Modi ji, after they took the vaccine publicly, and this was publicized on television, in newspapers. That is the time when the Bharat Biotech board took the decision that yes, we will invest in expanding our facilities. Okay. Cartoonist Satish Acharya, we have written in our book, is responsible for 6,000 deaths because despite taking the vaccine himself, he did he put out cartoons which were against vaccination. Okay. And we are planning, Savio and I are planning, along with a few other like-minded people, in filing a public interest litigation of a criminal suit against these people and charging them with the deaths of at least 30,000 to 40,000 people and asking them to compensate each of the families with 10 lakh rupees each.
Wow. And I can tell you the way you actually spell out this information, very well supported by the numbers, sheer numbers. Do you have the references of all these things in your books as to make those numbers more concrete and evidence-based?
Yes, 100%, 100%. And Abhijit, let me tell you, somebody who both Savio and I don't know, and we printed his quote on the book in the print book. He's a professor in some university in Hyderabad. I'm forgetting the name of the university. He wrote a very good line about the book. He said, "Beta can lie, data cannot."
Okay. That's a nice one. Yeah. No, thank you so much. I think it's an excellent conversation. So we actually will continue with our proceedings as planned. And as a part of that, we have a very intelligent audience and the audience who would like to know some of the facts. And I believe I will hand it over to Poonam and Akshay because I'm sure that there must be a few questions on the chat.
Yeah, we do have a few questions, and I think Poonam is online as well. So she's, I think, ready to bring them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Go on, Poonam.
Thank you, Amit ji, and thank you, Savio ji and Ankur Pathak ji. That was really a great conversation, and it has really given us a food of thought about what this book will be like. And so we're really awaiting the copies of the book in Melbourne. So the questions that we have got from audience, the first one is, are you publishing this book in local Indian languages? And is there a plan for an audiobook? So maybe Ankur Pathak ji, do you want to?
Yeah, so of course we are working on the Hindi translation of this book. It is almost in the final stage. And very soon we are going to bring it in more Indian languages.
Okay, that's good.
Ankurji, a lot of people are also asking for audiobook.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's work together for the audiobook.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if an audiobook is feasible, considering that there are so many charts, graphs, data tables, etc. I don't know how in an audiobook that can come out.
I think we can make the interpretations in the form of audiobook. So that we need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. We've got the next question, which is more sort of like a comment, but I would read that question and then let Amit ji and Savio ji answer it. So there has been a lot of debate around the second wave regarding mismanagement at government administration level, like Kumbh Mela, which obviously, Savio, you have touched upon before. Election rallies. However, surprisingly, no one wants to talk about the root issue, which is massive population, which has amplified the scale of the pandemic for India. And shouldn't population control be at the forefront of discussion, again, maybe in your future books, or else India will always be in a catch-up mode, be it infrastructure, medical facilities, etc. It's a long question, but yeah.
Amit, go ahead.
So I think, personally speaking, I think the large population that I have is definitely an issue, not only concerning COVID or any pandemic, but any other kind of disease, any other kind of, other problems that our country faces, like unemployment, etc., etc. I mean, there are a lot of problems that are caused due to the high population that we have. Can anything be done about it? I'm not so sure. I mean, if I want to have a third child or a fourth child, who is the government to disallow me from doing it? We don't live in China. We don't live in a autocratic country. We don't live in Vietnam. We are a democracy. So I don't think the government can do anything about it. I think we did very, very well in the 70s and 80s. I think led by Indira Gandhi, the program Hum Do Hamare Do, it was very, very successful. And a lot of people did family planning. And we were able to bring down our population growth rate. But there is one, I mean, the one religious community that continues to produce more than 2 kids per family. I think their education has to come from their religious leaders. It can't come from the government. It can't come from political parties or politicians. Whether their religious leaders will do it or not, I don't know. But yes, India's population is definitely a problem. I mean, there was a time when some leaders made a statement that, and I think Modi ji himself made a statement saying that, oh, we should look at the population as a positive rather than a negative. But I think, when you have 139.3 crore people, it's not necessarily a positive, right? I mean, especially given our population density. So yeah, population was one of the reasons why we had a terrible pandemic, and population will be one of the reasons, or the main reason, why we will have several different medical emergencies in the future also.
As a doctor, can I say something about the population control which was done in India during Indira Gandhi's time? It was very well done initially, but later on, when Sanjay Gandhi took it over in his hand, and spoiled the whole scenario of Nasbandi and other things, even on unmarried people. Now, any political party is little reluctant to take that program in hand because they feel that it can be a boomerang and that can actually lose many elections. That's what many of our doctors, when we sit together, we discuss about it.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Gavankar. I think, Poonam, we have a few people who have raised the hand. So I think let us allow them to, say something. So I think we can start with Himanshu Potaji.
Yeah.
Namaskar, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Now, you're all very wise people. I've been listening very patiently to you. Every one of you has so much thoughts and all that, but I'll just add one thing which I have very, very carefully thought over the years, that population is our greatest asset. And I'll leave it at that. And I've thought it very carefully.
I agree with you.
Population as a liability, one Indian is another Indian's enemy automatically. He thinks if the other person was not there, I would have been happier. So population, think very carefully. You're all very wise people. Think very carefully. Population is our greatest asset, and I'll stop it at that. Thank you very much.
I actually agree with you. I personally believe that population is our greatest asset. The problem is we do not know how to utilize our
That's right.
population.
That is right. That is what we have to learn. Never, no Indian should say another Indian is my enemy. Because if that guy was not there, I would have been happy. That has created such a poisonous atmosphere in India. You get into the train, you think if the other guy was not there, I'll be sleeping on this bus. And that mentality percolates all over India. So please, you think about it. I could be wrong, but I have thought this thing for 30 years now. And there is not one, we can argue, not one person has been able to argue with me successfully against population. Not one argument. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Himanshuji. Nilesh Patilji, do you want to ask any question, or I can proceed with asking other questions?
I think, Puram, you should ask the questions we've already got. Otherwise,
Okay.
it just gets into disarray. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, how do you think about the government's stance on Twitter? Despite a law being passed and a hostile defiance against compliance, the government seems to be uncomfortable to lay down the law.
Well, Poonam, while I'd love to answer that question, I don't think that question is appropriate at this point of time when we're talking about Modi stole my mask. So with all due respect to the person asking you that question, we can answer that question at some other platform.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Savioji. The next question is, does the book reflect legal side of what opportunists exploited, and how can they be brought to books like this?
Savio, you can take.
Well, of course, the book brings about a lot of information and a lot of data that identifies what I consider to be the organizers of the pandemic. And that's what Amit considers as well. So we have to look at legal aspects of bringing them to book, because this is going to continue over and over again. You see, the problem with people, and the people who are against the government and people who act like they are for the country but really working against the country, is the problem of misinformation. So today, with the social media tools available to us, some of the mainstream media as well, towing the line of these people, you have ample and a humongous amount of disinformation, misinformation, false information about any and everything to do pertaining to this government or the health crisis or any other crisis that the country is facing. So do we have to deal with it? I think the government has to understand very clearly, and that is what we highlight in the book as well. Like taking the COVID pandemic, if you see the reportage we did on media and media personalities and what they had to say and what they did, you will realize that all they did was spread fear. And the government must act against misinformation. The problem, at least I personally see, and Amit would agree with me, with the government, is that they've taken a very laid-back approach to dealing with misinformation and fake news. It has to be assertive, and to a certain extent, it has to be aggressive. Unfortunately, they are not doing that. Say, today, when you have, say, for example, a Rahul Gandhi continuously talking absolute rubbish on social media, completely misguiding with regards to information. Do you know the vaccine hesitancy is actually emerging from these social media messages, from politicians, from media? Today, if you don't vaccinate the person, whether he's getting vaccinated or whether he's taking traditional Indian medicines, that's all his choice or her choice. But to be able to contain the virus, we have to create a certain amount of vaccinated numbers. And if people aren't able to go about getting vaccinated or are kept in fear by politicians, by religious people, one person affected by COVID is capable of actually infecting the rest of the country. When did COVID start in India? January 30th, 2020. 3 people came from Wuhan. That's all it took for the pandemic to start. 3 people from Wuhan. That is why I think the government must act against misinformation with regards to the health crisis. My personal opinion is that they should have invoked emergency in dealing with the crisis. Emergency so that the health crisis is brought under check across the country. None of the states should have been allowed to act the way they did, because all they did was play politics around it. In fact, they should have taken over the Serum Institute itself and ensured mass production, taken out various different institutes and ensured mass production of the vaccine. Why did Covaxin not produce so many doses? Logically, if you ask yourself, the question is because they were not sure themselves whether people will take the vaccine or not because of vaccine hesitancy. Do you want a small pharma company to produce so much of vaccine and suddenly they realize that nobody is taking the vaccine because there's a fear psychosis created? How much did the media talk about that? How much were the politicians calling it Modi vaccine? I mean, you might not like Modi as a person, but for crying out loud, he sits on the chair of the Prime Minister of this country. At least respect that. The deaths that have happened in this country and people are not getting vaccinated, they should be charged onto the very people who are spreading misinformation. That is why Amit had said, people like Satish Acharya, who we count responsible for 6,000 deaths because of misinformation, should actually be jailed. They are responsible for the death by misinformation. They must compensate the families. That's the information you get in the book. Can a legal
and
thing
Savio,
be
it's not until 1 or 2 such people are actually jailed that the others will learn. So if you remember about 2-3 years ago, the Wire, who Arnab Goswami calls the liar, did a slanderous article against Jai Shah, Amit Shah's son. And Jai Shah filed a 50 crore libel suit against the Wire. And the Wire was forced to apologize in Gujarat High Court and forced to retract the article, right? It needs, people, nationalists to come together, because the government is not going to do it. A previous question was on Twitter. Just like they're sleeping on Twitter, they're sleeping on all the misinformation being spread about COVID also, and they will continue to be sleeping on that. I think a bunch of nationalists need to come together, Savio, and file some suits against these liars.
I completely agree with you, Amit, because I don't think the government's going to do anything as far as the misinformation is concerned. They're not going to do something about it. Referring to that suit against Amit Shah's son, all they did was apologize and retract the article. But Wire continues to spread lies. That's the problem. The problem today is what your people are not understanding. Today, when a WhatsApp message goes to my mother or her set of friends in, say, South Goa, which comes from either a religious leader or some common friends, they have huge vaccine hesitancy because that's the way they think. Now, you don't have belief in Narendra Modi, that's fine. But at least believe in science. Science is here to protect you, right? So I don't think this attitude that we should not hold the government to act. The government must act. It is their job to act. It's not ours. You and I are not supposed to be filing cases. We don't have time for that. The government has a machinery. They have law by their sides. They must do it. Whether even it's with Twitter, people say, oh, government is doing whatever they can. Government knows what it's doing. Modi hai, to mumkin hai. I understand that. But act, please. There were people who were dying by misinformation. There were people who you could not have saved because of that misinformation. So this whitewashing of the government's inability is something that we need to stop. The government must act. It is their duty to stop misinformation going on about the pandemic, about this country. If they can't do it, then they don't deserve to be in the government.
Thank you, Savio ji and Amit ji.
Savio, sorry, I'll just ask a related question. So what's the actual on-ground impact of this COVID crisis and the management or the media mismanagement around it? And is that going to affect BJP's...
Amit's daughter, Amit's daughter in Amit's statement clearly tells you exactly what the mindset is.
Yeah. And is it going to impact their election chances going forward? Is that...
I don't care. I really don't care whether it impacts their elections or not. I'm not here to support BJP's election campaign. My point is, my concern and Amit's concern is the country.
Yeah.
You see, this is a health crisis. This is not a political crisis. In a health crisis, we have to deal with the situation together. Whether Modi wins an election or not is the least of my concern. I'd like him to win because he's really a good leader. But that's not my priority, and that's not Amit's priority as well. But to understand how it's impacting people, you should go back to what Amit said. And his daughter's understanding of the situation, and his daughter is a learned girl. Right? They are the youth of today. If they are going to have that kind of information where people like him and I are actually putting out facts, then how much more difficult it is for people who are not in our close circle, who don't even see facts.
Correct.
But so is it penetrating? Yes. And the government must understand that what they are doing is a disservice.
Akshay, the problem is actually relating to the question that you just asked. The entire problem, and when Savio said the government must act and it is the government's job and we don't have the time to take legal action, and I completely agree with that. We don't have the time or the resources to do that. But you know why the government is not acting? The government is not acting because, and I've been told this in private by very, very senior BJP leaders, not just on this issue, but on several other issues that I brought about in my writings over the past 4, 5, 6 years. The government doesn't act because the party, the BJP, doesn't care about what my daughter thinks, because the BJP knows that she doesn't go out and vote. The BJP knows that these urban youth, they prefer to stay in their air-conditioned rooms on the day of voting because the day of voting is usually on a weekend. It's the poor, it's the rural folk, it's those people who go out and vote. And those are not the people who are reading the Wire or the Quint or the Print India or any of that. And that's the reason, unfortunately, that the government is keeping quiet. But what the government doesn't realize, or what the party doesn't realize, is that it's giving India a bad name globally.
Yeah.
Sure, your voter may not be reading the wire or the quint, okay? But the global media and therefore the global audience, and I'm sure thousands and thousands of people in Australia where you're sitting are reading this, very fancy media with very nice logos and very fancy names, and the journalists who were made famous during the UP era, people who were given Padma Bhushan and Padma Vibhushan. In fact, one of the things that I want to do is I want to start a campaign which is the reverse award Wapsi, right? People who've been wrongly given a Padma Bhushan or Padma Vibhushan or Padma Shri, who do not deserve it, prove in a court of law that they do not deserve it and take it away from them.
Right.
If the armed forces can do that, why can't we?
Right.
No, in fact, this is one of the missions of Hindu Resonance Forum here in Australia. That so many names that you have taken, we are so familiar with them and their negative narratives that we are trying our best to actually counter them and defeat them at the right point in time. So I think we are running out of time, I believe. But there is one last question which Poonam has, followed by Dhruva has raised the hand, and then we will do the vote of thanks.
Yeah,
Now it's already close to 8:30, so we have to wind up now, Poonam.
Perfect,
Sure.
perfect. Just one last question. Where do you see the investigation into Wuhan lab going? And what's the time frame that you're looking, maybe in your next book?
Well, I think if Amit and I get uninterrupted time from our other activities, which we're busy with, I think we can finish the book in about less than 45 days again, because the data is already there.
Oh, really?
I won't give you the title yet, but predominantly what we're going to talk about is the China's bio warfare strategies, the World Health Organization's dereliction of duty, and really how did this pandemic originate and where it's going to go. Let me also tell you very sadly and very surely also that this is not the end of the pandemic. This is just the beginning of it. Because in hindsight, China's got taste of war. This is a new form of warfare. The world's never going to be the same again. You can forget living what we were in 2019. This is completely changed. Whether it's a third wave, whether it's a tsunami, the most important thing that we need to, as citizens of this country, is to stick together. You're dealing with a crisis that is an attack on humanity. And if you're going to lose our humanness in this pandemic itself by being divided on basis of caste or creed or political preferences, I don't think we're going to survive it. The only thing we've survived for so long is because we actually intrinsically become or behave as good humans. So if you want to really survive the pandemic, shut your television channels, get out of social media platforms, and live your life with the truth around, with people that are genuinely good people that have the right information.
Thank you, Savio ji. That's really well said. That's the main message, I guess. One last question. Dhruv, do you want to ask one question because you had raised your hand?
Yeah, I would like to. So thanks for giving me this opportunity, and I would like to thank the writers and wish them good luck for the future, and whatever work they have done as of now, it's really good. And I just wanted to ask this thing like Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is the Indian tradition, it's in Indian culture, and the thing is that we lost it. So the research on Ayurveda has reduced, people have lost faith. So is it right time to bring that back so that people can get immune naturally without any side effects? So can we do that? Is this the right time?
Before Amit answers that, let me share with you one statistical point. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been analyzing data from China, which is written in Mandarin. So we're getting it translated. Now, here's one interesting notification that was given out by the government of the Chinese government on January 23rd. there were two very vital notifications that came out. The first notification that came out on January 23rd was the restrictions of travel, whether through flight or through rail or by car from Wuhan to the rest of China. That was one notification. That same notification, however, allowed for travel from Wuhan International Airport to the rest of the world. That's how your pandemic actually spread to the rest of the world, through the travel of passengers from Wuhan to the rest of the world, and using the metro line too, because that's the transportation that's massively used by people within China, and even people outside who come to China use that because that's the most quickest way to get to the airport. But that's something more that we detailed in our second book. The second most important notification was that every person in China, in all provinces, were to take traditional Chinese medicines because of the pandemic. China had already immunized itself through a notification as early as Jan 23rd, and there was an earlier notification that was sometime in December as well, about adopting to traditional Chinese medicine to deal with a new strain of pneumonia, which they termed it as pneumonia at that time. So they were aware. So should India have done something similar as far as Ayurveda is concerned? Of course it should have. But unfortunately, we are so coupled or strangled by the pharma lobby that is completely driven by allopathy, which is necessary. But we are not allowing for our traditional medicines to grow. So I think we should focus on traditional medicines from the point of view of enhancing immunities in our bodies. That's my view.
Because see, like, country like India, who has a lot of background of medicines, following Ayurvedic way of life, we wouldn't have had a lockdown, to be frank. If we had followed it properly, and we wouldn't have lost that knowledge.
I don't know whether that's true or not, whether we would have had or not had a lockdown. I'm completely somebody who supports Ayurveda in an aspect of improving our immunity in the body. I think there's nothing better than that. That's my view on it.
Okay. No, one small question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dhruvesh. We should give someone else a chance quickly. I think Hemchandra has his hand up for a while.
Sorry, I missed your hand. So Hemchandra,
you want to quickly ask a question, and then we
all right. Thank you, guys. It's very interesting conversation. There are only two questions. How can I get this book quickly, and how can I spread about this book back in India as well as here in Sydney? I live in Sydney, so I don't want to go in the details, but I wanted to buy this book, and I wanted to send this book as quickly as possible to my friends and community here in Sydney.
I will take the liberty to answer this on behalf of all three of them.
All right,
Savio and Ankur. Yes, we have ensured that the copies are with us here. We have ordered initially the 50 copies, but definitely the way people are interested and the way the session has gone, I'm pretty sure that people would be very keen to know more and more, and we are happy to order, and we will ship it to Sydney, and we can ship it more copies if you like. And I will take the details from Ankurji in terms of delivering it to within Bharat. All right, fantastic. That's a good thing.
So anyone in the audience, who's interested, please send us an email. I've sent our email on the chat box. Send us an email and we'll organize that for you. Go on.
Yeah. I got a question for Mr. Savio. Now we're talking about the population. China is scrapped one-child policy a few weeks back, and now they're asking their citizens to have 3 children. What's the plan? They wanted to.
Well, I guess they.
I mean, what I suspect is whether they really seriously thinking to just get out the whole population in China and getting the fresh population in China for next 1 decade. And as you said, this is starting of the pandemic. So you don't know what's happening in next 2, 4, 5, 10 years. Are they getting some new stocks?
Well, I can tell you one thing about China. China's been playing or planning the bioweapon way back in 1984. In fact, if you go as recent as 2017, in the University of Defense of China, they actually have a chapter which Amit threw light on genetic mutation via ethnicity. Okay, so I'm of the firm belief, and just as Amit is, that there is actually genetic mutation of the virus that is happening, and it's targeting people based on ethnicity. Now, the reason China probably is increasing its population from what it was, which was the one-child policy before, is because they realized that they need more people now to send to the rest of the world so that they can have their own people in the rest of the world. Please understand, the reason why the world is fighting against
they already own 22 countries.
They practically control most countries, including the US.
Yeah.
US can continue to do what you see. Let me give you one startling fact. I know we're running out of time, but I'll leave you with this humorous thought. We personally believe that China's products are most ineffective, cheap, right? That is the general thought of everybody in most parts of India and some parts outside of India as well. That cheap quality, low quality products you get from China. So how come they started to make a really virulent bio-warfare weapon that has gone and destroyed every person in this world, in most countries? So they had to have got help. That help obviously came from the US.
Yeah.
So US cannot go about saying that it's not involved. On a national TV debate, I've told one of the US representatives who said we'd have no idea where the fund went to Wuhan lab. So I gave him the dates. All I didn't give him were the check numbers, I guess. Maybe that would have convinced him. I gave him the dates when the funds were released. So the point is, certain people, I'm saying this again, see, nothing is coincidental in a journalism or intelligence community. Please understand that. Trump raised his voice against China. Trump got knocked off. What was used to knock off China? The pandemic management and the Black Lives Matter movement. What is the strategy happening in India? You had the tsunami of the pandemic. You had the CAA protest before, and now you have the farmer protest. Don't you see similarities? And if you even go by analyzing the content that was out towards Trump at that time and Modi at that time, and you look at keywords, they're almost identical. That's what Amit and I do. We are analysts.
I'll add something. I'll add something which is very, very relevant here. This is a book called I Spy, which I had written in early 2019, and you'll be shocked to hear this, that if you look at the spy agencies of the various countries, right? Russia's FSB employs 75,000 people. China's MSS employs 50,000 people, which is less than Russia's FSB. CIA employs only 22,000 people. Israel's Mossad only employs 1,800 people. Our RAW, India's RAW, employs 9,000 people. These are people who are paid by these various spy agencies. However, China has 6 lakh unpaid spies.
Yes.
Who are working for them. These are like what we call our brothers and sisters who are of Indian origin who live around the world. We call them NRIs or PIOs. The Chinese word is Huai. There are more than 45 million Chinese living abroad, out of which 600,000 people are actually spying on behalf of the MSS, which is the Ministry of State Security, which is their spy agency.
My goodness, the figures are startling.
I'll give you another startling figure. Allow me. Okay, I recently completed an online course on Harvard, on religion, conflict, and peace. So when I was going to another set, and I'm doing one on religions as well, the entire program. So it's a 7-course program. Almost most of the courses are focusing on China. Not the course I did, but other courses that were there. China's history, China's legacies, China's economy. And I'm wondering what the heck has happened over here. You know, Harvard's almost taken over by the Chinese.
Okay, Savio, I think we need to wind up, and it would be definitely, another session that we would like to have very soon, but I'll hand it over to Poonam for winding up and vote of thanks.
Thank you. After an interesting conversation with our eminent authors and publisher, the book launch event is coming to an end. And I would like to thank each and every one in the audience who made this event successful. Firstly, I express my heartfelt gratitude to Amit Bagaria ji, Savio ji, and Ankur ji for your gracious presence and taking your personal time out on a Sunday afternoon, giving us an opportunity to listen to your devotion for truth, experiences, thoughts, and helping us get a glimpse of the painstaking research done behind this book. No doubt that this book is an Amazon bestseller in such a short period of time, and we are eagerly awaiting for our books, as mentioned before, to reach Melbourne so we can read this insightful book and have more interesting conversations. So thank you and best wishes for the success of the book. Next, I would like to extend my thanks to Mr. Abhijit Bhireji, Akshay Devdharji, and Dr. Rajiv Paddeji from SETU for organizing the event, their leadership in coordinating the nitty-gritties to make this event successful. Without their idea and leadership to have such an event, we wouldn't have got an opportunity to listen to such an informative session and actually enlightening conversations with both Savio ji and Amit ji. So thanks to both of you. Thanks to our young generation of bright students, Prajakta and Soumya, for bringing a contemporary perspective right from designing the flyer, promotional activities for the launch and comparing for the event. Lastly, thanks to the wonderful audience for participating in today's launch and asking great insightful questions. Thank you again, and we look forward for future participation of yours in SETU events. Have a good evening and thank you.
Namaste. Thanks, Amit. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Savio. It was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So really good.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
All the
guys.
best. Your book is going to be a super hit.
Yeah, yes,
Thank you.
definitely.
Super hit. Yeah.
Good,
The
good
best
night,
luck for
guys.
both.
Thank you.
Thank you.